You've probably had ziti casserole at a lot of Italian weddings. And the word ziti means bridegroom, and that's why it's served at a lot of weddings. Ziti. So we're going to make a ziti casserole. And we're going to start with some onion in olive oil. So here I have about 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to put my onion in. 1 medium onion, diced up. So we're going to let that go, and while that's cooking, we'll add some garlic to this. So you want about, a good clove or 2 or 3 if you like garlic, and I like to use this when I want minced garlic. This is a microplane zester, and it's great for zesting fruits, citrus fruits. If you want just the zest, it's also great for chocolate, and it's great for garlic. So you just grate right over the top of it. Makes it a lot easier than using a knife. And as you grate, of course, you see what happens. The garlic just kind of disappears right onto the implement. So get your garlic in there. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more. And the nice thing about this too is if you still have the papers on the garlic, don't even worry about that. Just leave the paper there and grate. The paper just kind of stays behind. If you see, it's just kind of falling off. So we have our garlic and our onions going. Get that soft. So let's let those onions cook down a little bit. That's the base of our sauce. But we're going to be adding eggplant to that. Eggplant, you know, is very notorious for using a lot of olive oil when it's cooked. So we want to make sure that we're not going to be using too much oil with that. I usually cook that in peanut oil, but because we're using such a small amount here, I'm going to cook it right in the olive oil. So when the onions are soft like that and the garlic is soft, well, then you can add some wine. And I like to use, a good fruity wine. A nice Tuscan wine would be good for this. Today we're using Centine. So we're going to put some wine in here with the onions. We're going to let that go and let those onions absorb most of that wine. So I'm going to turn the heat up on that a little bit. And before we put the eggplant in, we'll let that cook down. But let me talk to you about the pasta, because for this, we're using whole wheat ziti. And that looks like this, you see? A slant type of pasta. And when you start cooking a dried pasta like this, you want to make sure that you begin with 4 to 6 quarts of rapidly boiling water, to which you're going to add about a tablespoon of salt. So we're going to add the salt now. So you put the salt in. Let's give that a stir to make sure that that salt is evenly distributed in the water. And we're going to add the pasta. Now, I'm only going to cook a half a pound of this. This is going to make enough to serve 6 people, 6 to 8 people in this casserole. But if you wanted to cook a whole pound and serve more, then you would increase the amount of sauce that you're going to use. But today, only a half a pound, because remember, pasta is a first serving. In this case, we're using it, though, as a casserole, so we can get more servings than serving just maybe 4 to 6 people. So we're going to put this in, and we're going to let it cook till it's a bit firmer than we normally would cook this. I would normally say if you're going to serve it right away, you want it al dente. But here, we want it even firmer because we're going to bake this in the oven as well. So put the pasta in and let it come back to the boil. Now let's take a look and see what we're doing here. This is looking good, and it's smelling wonderful, very cherryish with the wine in there. And now I'm going to take the onions out, because now we have to cook the eggplant separately. So I'm going to take this out into a bowl. There's my bowl. And let's get these onions out. So the onions go into a dish. And now we're going to add just a bit more olive oil to this. Remember, if you were doing a lot of eggplant, you'd want to use peanut oil, but today we only have a little bit. So more extra virgin in the pan. And we're going to put our eggplant right in. We're going to let this cook down until that eggplant is somewhat soft. Now we got to keep our eye on the pasta as well. But let's talk about what else we're going to have with this, because I don't know about you, but I like a little hotness in my casseroles. And this is just red pepper paste, you see? I made this last year when I was taking peppers out of my garden. And believe me, a little bit goes a long way. So we're going to put a little bit in there with the eggplant. And you're really going to taste that. You're saying to yourself, well, that doesn't seem to be enough, but believe me, it is. You can find the recipe for this on the Ciao Italia website. So check it out. So there's our pepper paste. And then we want some olives with this as well. And here we have oil-cured black olives. And we've taken the pits out. And it has a very, I don't want to say pungent flavor, but they're rather strong. So if you don't like olives, you can leave it out of this casserole. So there are our olives. I'm going to put them right back in the bowl and talk to you about the cheese that we're going to use with this. Because we're going to use 2 cheeses. Here's one of them, a buffalo mozzarella cheese. I'll take that top off. And if you're in southern Italy, this is the cheese that you're going to be looking at. This is the cheese that's made in particularly Campania. And buffalo mozzarella is made from the milk of the buffalo, the water buffalo. So there it is, and it usually comes in its own water. Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful to look at. So we're going to cut that up into small pieces. And for that, I like to use a cheese knife. This is a cheese knife because the cheese is so very, very soft and milky. See how milky and creamy that is? So we're just going to cut that up into pieces. And I'm going to put that back in a bowl until we need it. Very soft. All right, so we have that. And then the other cheese we want to use for this is a pecorino cheese. And that is a sheep's milk cheese. And that's right here. You see? That's pecorino cheese. Much saltier in flavor than a cow's milk cheese. And that we're going to grate up. Let me just go back to my eggplant here. And that's looking good enough to give it a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And now we add back these onions. We got sizzle now. All right, I'm going to turn that down. Turn this down. And now we want to give that tomatoes. And here's a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Here's my trick for not splattering yourself. Pour it right over the spoon. Get it in there. Isn't this starting to look good? And mix that around. And now we can add our olives. They go right in with the sauce. This sauce is going to take about 20 minutes to cook. This is flat leaf Italian parsley. I'm going to cut off the stems, but you know, every time I do that, I hear my mother telling me, use the stems, they're good too. So you want to take that parsley and just give it a chop. And we're going to put that in with our sauce. This is such a recognizable casserole, this Ziti casserole, in southern Italy. And casseroles are usually in the southern Italian tradition more than they are in the northern Italian tradition. So there's so many that you can improvise on. All right, so there is our parsley. That goes in. We mix this around and we let that cook. So I'm going to put the cover on that just to get that going. It's nice and thick. And actually, I'm going to add a little bit more wine to that. Yes, wine. Maybe at about another half a cup. So more wine is in there. You give that another stir. And then we're going to have to check our pasta because that could be cooked already. This looks gorgeous. All right, so now that's cooking. Let's see where we are here on pasta. And the best way to do that, to check that, is to, well, fish a piece out and see where it is. Now, it's still a little firm, but that's okay because we're going to be baking this pasta in the oven. So I want to take it out now. So I'm going to take it out into a bowl. While it's still rather firm, turn this off and get that pasta. This time I'm trying to be really neat because I do get emails from you that say I splash water all over, but it's unavoidable sometimes. So there is the pasta, and there it goes right into the bowl. And a neat little trick, of course, when you're dealing with sauce, is to take just a tad and add it to your sauce, because that water has great starch, and the sauce loves that. It'll help with the pasta. It'll help cling to the pasta. So that's going along nicely. So there's our pasta. So now what we have to do is we have to grate cheese. And because I love this cheese, I'm going to use a little bit more than I normally do. So maybe about a half a cup of the pecorino cheese. And just about every region in Italy makes a pecorino cheese. So when you go to the store, you might see pecorino sardo, meaning it's coming from Sardinia, pecorino toscano, meaning it's coming from Tuscany. So it just depends. Every region makes a pecorino cheese. All right, that looks like it's about a half a cup, maybe just a little bit more. All right, so we have our cheese. Let's see where we are here on the sauce. Okay, I think this sauce is ready. Look at how beautiful it looks. It's cooked down some, it's nice and thick. So now we can add the pasta. So let me turn that way down. I forgot to tell you, your oven is on at 350. So now our ziti go in the casserole dish. And we want to stir that around. Now I can turn this off because we're going to bake this. I'm going to turn the heat off. But I want to add my cheese to this now. So you really give that a good mix. And let's put the pecorino in, the pecorino romano, go in and stir that around. That's why I controlled the salt on this, because of the cheese. You know, cooking is all about just using your head, really, not about set recipes. So that looks really good. And now, did I say that would serve 6? That's going to serve a lot more than 6. And now we want to put on those little bits of the buffalo mozzarella. That's going to really melt nicely as this bakes. We're going to bake this covered. So do a nice artful presentation on the top. Beautiful. Now, this is real Southern Italian. Cover goes on. We're going to take this over to the oven now. We're going to bake this for about, I would say, 35 minutes or so.